Good afternoon. Lunchtime on a beautiful July 17th in the Awakening Circle. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Just give a couple of seconds here for everything to finish setting up and get ready. We are going to be talking about sabotage today. And I'm excited about this one because I just had a great talk with my own coach, one of the psychotherapist I work with, Carol Look, and she has written 2 books on EFT, on tapping with gratitude and saying yes to life. And we were working this morning, and she is going to be on our podcast. So she's going to be on Sovereignty Rising coming soon, and we're going to be specifically talking about this here, because this is a whole thing that we need to get into. It's been something that's been showing up in my life lots over the last couple of years. Well, really over my whole life, because that's the way it works. And it's just starting to come to realize how to work with it, how to not see it as our enemy, but to maybe change the way we're perceiving our experiences. So that's what I want us to begin talking about today. But I am very excited about Carol coming and joining us on the podcast so that we can really dive deep into sabotage from her point of view as well. So let's see here. Let's see if I can get the comments to work. My usual issues that we go through. One of these days, you guys, one of these days. There you go, Bobby. Hi, Bobby. Get so excited when I get to this place where things start working for me. Hopefully they keep going. All right, here we go. Okay, beautiful. So today, the truth about sabotage. So it hits, I talk about this a bit in the podcast that's dropping tomorrow as well, but how to stop shrinking from our own expansion. Because often this is where our saboteur comes in, is when we are looking for some sort of an expansion. And that expansion can be spiritual. It can be even within our own growth cycles with career, with family, with relationships. It shows up in all sorts of places. So this isn't just in one area of our life, but in many. We see it come alive really, really strong when we start moving through this side of things, when we're looking at our spiritual growth, how we're showing up in the world, and starting to come into that place of who am I, and beginning the unraveling of all the things that we were taught we were, so that we can start to remember who we really are. And that's really what the Awakening Circle is all about, is being able to practice little steps, micro steps, to help us get there and cultivate great conversation. And so sabotage itself, it's where I'm going to start with. So sabotage isn't self-sabotage. It's self-protection when expansion feels unsafe. So I just want you to just take that in for a moment. Sabotage isn't self-sabotage. It's self-protection for when expansion doesn't feel safe. And so when we feel like where we're going might be an unsafe place to be, this is when we can see our saboteur come up. And so if we can make friends with these aspects of ourselves that we often see as a negative, and if instead we can make friends with them and ask, what is it that we're scared of? Because that's often what these pieces come in for. The child doesn't grow, and what are you scared of? I'm scared of not being loved, of being cared for, of being accepted. These are the base of what most of our fears come from, is, not being loved, not being accepted, being rejected. So not being accepted is one thing, being rejected is another. And so we have these pieces, but it always comes from this concept of separation. So fear is the illusion of separation, so that either we can't have something that we desire, or we're going to lose something that we want to keep, that we love. And so that's where the fears begin. And sabotage is often is a way that we try to protect ourselves, because we have an unknown, and that unknown might look similar to times we've been hurt. And so if we take a look, I said, high functioning people, women, get really stuck. And why does that end up happening? And it's because the next step feels unsafe. And a lot of people are always surprised. Like, I will talk openly with in my groups that I have my own fears, I have my own worries, my own limiting beliefs. There's a reason why I work with Carol and with Sarah, and we're moving through these things. And Carol especially, I work through a lot of my own fears. And so, and life is bringing these things up so that we can deal with them. That's the law of magnetic attraction. It's not just like have abundant thoughts and attract abundance. And it's not just be angry inside and attract anger. It's deeper than that. It's way bigger than that. It is our soul, our spirit, purposely attracting experiences to us so that we can see what's inside and bring it to the surface and deal with it. So when I was in Greece, I was getting these constant messages, speak, speak, speak. It's time for you to put on workshops again. It's time for you to do these things that I've just kind of put off over the last couple of years. And all of a sudden, as soon as I got home, a week later, it was this old wound came up of nobody wants to hear what you have to say. And so I've been dealing with it for the last couple of weeks. And instead of just like, oh, that's not true, get rid of it, I was like, no, let's like let it rise. Let's unravel the whole entire thing. And so unraveling it not only from my own personal experiences as an adult, as a adolescent, as a child, but even looking at my mom from a different lens of seeing like how she dealt with that, and that this is an ancestral wound, and how often it's actually a feminine wound. It's one of the mother wounds, is for us to stay quiet and to be small, because it's not safe for us to expand to be our true brightness. And so this is a place where our saboteur can come in, not as a attempt to hurt us, but as an attempt to keep us safe. Once we understand that, then we can start going deeper and deeper into what's there. And in that depths, it's funny, I pulled a card right before I came, an oracle card, and it said, dive deep into the light. And it's like, ugh, that always means I gotta go into the darkness, go all the way through the darkness to get to the light. And this card comes up for me quite a bit. And then as I'm sitting here talking about it today, I'm like, right, because we're going to go through the darkness of the saboteur, dive deep to get into the light. We're going to go all the way through to excavate so that we can bring these pieces up. One of the things that I noticed as I was going through these wounds is the nervous system responses that come with them. So I was even talking with Carol today about this one wound that I have. I flinch when I'm complimented. And I do it quite a bit. People that are close to me notice it. They don't usually say something, but my husband and I were talking about it, and he's like, you even flinch if you repeat a compliment that was given to you when you and I are talking at the end of the day. And I was like, I do. Yeah, it's like a shudder. Like there's a whole piece that goes with it. And so I took it with Carol today. I was like, I've got these two places. One is this, it's not safe to ask for things. And the other is, it's not, compliments are dangerous. So those were the two beliefs that were coming up that were interfering with my work. And so not just interfering with my everyday life, my relationships, but interfering with my ability to fully show up and be present in this role, this journey that I've been asked, that I prepared to be in, to be a spiritual teacher, to be a contrarian guide. And so as we were going through this, we were talking about like how these things affect our nervous system. And so it's not just that we have this wound, it actually will totally affect our nervous system, where we can have a physical reaction, a contraction, a shuddering, a flinching. Like there's so many different things that can happen where we like shut down. Like I have a couple of people in my life where you watch them, and as soon as an emotion starts to rise, even if somebody near them's getting like upset, they literally just shut down. Emotions aren't safe. It's not safe to show them. And if I ever cry, I'll never stop. And you're like, oh, interesting. Okay. And so we have all these things, but a lot of it is like so deeply embedded. It's infected our nervous system. And so we think like, this is just the way I am. And it's not. We aren't born this way, but sometimes we are. If we have ancestral wounds coming through, mother wounds, then we're literally bringing it through ourselves, through our energy bodies into this life. So we are. But we're not designed to be this way. So although this has become normal, it's not natural. And so I say that because it's important for us to remember that anything that's not natural can be healed, it can be released, it can be let go. And so there's never this is too much. I was working with somebody earlier this week, and as we were talking, we just started working together, really, really triggered. And I was like, oh, I see you. And what I could see was me 10 years ago. Super triggered, super reactive all the time. People like very much like, and not just intimidated, but somewhat scared of me. And all of it protective. Not because I was a mean person, but because I was a very, very, very guarded and protected person. I had a huge heart wall. I did whatever I needed to do to survive, subconscious, not aware of it, and didn't realize at the time that it was something that I could actually work through, heal, and let go of. That I don't need to have these reactions. This isn't actually something that's natural. It might be my normal, but it's not natural, and I can change it. Will it take some work? Probably. Does it have to? No. We can actually, we are designed to be able to have an instant realization and release and have a total shift. We are designed to be able to do that. We complicate things because of our ego and our humanness and our relationships and all the rest. So does it need to be this complicated? No. Is it? Often. And it's because we're complicated. And we love to complicate things and make them more difficult. And it's just the way that we are, because life's supposed to be hard. And so, we move through these things and create this chaos for ourselves. And so, noting that there's like this fear, but all these patterns are all because there's this fear beneath us. And it's the fear that triggers the nervous system. And so the saboteur just comes in to say, hey, we have a fear. We have something here. We don't feel safe. We, the nervous system, the brain, the ego, the body, they don't feel safe. And so if they're not feeling safe, then we're feeling this sense of agitation, of fear, of ungroundedness that can come up in us. And so I was just looking, I'm making sure I hit my points always, because I can ramble on. And so from the outside, often people won't necessarily see what's going on, but from the inside, like I was saying to you, people are like, what do you mean you have fear? And I'm like, I have tons of fear. I have fear of being rejected. I have fear of, there's all sorts of things. Of course I do. I'm just a person. I'm just like everybody else. I've got my own insecurities and my own wounds that need to be healed, and my own confirmation bias that comes up. I just really work on them. And I learned over the years to not show my vulnerability as a survival tactic. And so usually it takes people a long time, or it used to take people a long time to see my fear, because I wouldn't share them. Whereas now, the more I've gone down this path and accepted my own rules, is to be like, you know what? The thing that makes me a good coach, the thing that makes me a good spiritual teacher, is that I've been through all of this chaos. I've been through so much darkness that I don't judge people for what they're going through. I don't judge people for their shadows. I don't judge people for their reactions, because I see that they're just light, and there's just these smudges in the way, and we just need to clear it up. And I can give a lot of compassion even when we've done harm to others, because I understand that we're still just trying to do the best we can with what we have. And those behaviors started with fear. Do we need to be accountable for ourselves? 100%. We're not, it's not our fault that we've gotten to this place, but we are responsible for getting ourselves out. And so I say that because often, we're unaware. And so we're not going to get mad at a child for being somewhere and being scared. And we need to remind ourselves of that as we awaken into being a soul, being a spirit, being an aspect of divinity. Then within that awareness allows us to reconnect. And within that reconnection, we can look back at ourselves, at our past, with way more compassion and empathy. And so then when we're doing it with compassion and empathy, we start to heal the saboteur. And I think that's really important, because what we're feeling on the inside and what people are seeing on the outside are almost never the same. Sometimes there's people that can see it, but not often. Not very many people have really being able to see me because I didn't let it happen. And I'm okay because I understand that that was just a survival tactic. And now I make a point of letting people see me, letting people see my fears, because I can trust, and this will come up from some of you, I can trust that I will remain completely present with myself. And so if somebody tries to manipulate or abuse me using one of my fears, then I trust that I'll be present and I'll see it. And I trust that if they do that, I've had it happen before. So I've had people come in and we would say like they're gaslighting us. So they're doing something and then projecting it onto us. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to take this on. Are you aware you're doing this? And I can absolutely hold firm in my own self because I'm so present here now. And when I have times, and they happen, where I'm not present and all of a sudden I get caught into an old fear, I've set up safeguards. One of the things Carol and I talked about today is setting up our own safeguards. I have Mike that will say like, hey, in his own kind way, you're spiraling. Like, are you present here right now? And so I have these people, Carol, him, some of my closest friends that will really hold space and be like, whoa, and pull me back out if I do get caught. And I've set those safeguards up to help and support me to be able to be the best version of myself. And we can all do that. That's why I created this whole, awakening circle, is so that we have people that we can talk to and feel safe in. And I know it feels hard when it's like, sometimes it's like a faceless environment. And that's why I love when we like introduce ourselves and explain something that's going on today. What is coming up for you, share our experiences, because then we can cultivate deeper relationships where we can come in and say, hey, this is happening in my world and it's a struggle, and we can be there and support each other. Just to know that there's other people that are desiring an opportunity to experience themselves, desiring more out of life, more than just what we touch and see, but more, a deeper relationship. And that is available to us. So know that like when we start showing these things and we start becoming more authentic, more clear, that we can do it and still be completely protected. And the more we're present, the more we're able to calm the saboteur inside of us. And so, understanding first, it's rooted in safety and not laziness. And so a lot of times we think, oh, I'm why am I procrastinating? I must be lazy. Nope, that's a saboteur. It's a coping mechanism. Comes from some sort of wound. So what's the wound? Now it's great. That's the reason. But now we're accountable for releasing it. And so remember that accountability is one of, I think it's the 6th principle of co-creation. And so we need to take accountability for ourselves, our actions and reactions. And so once we understand that, we can cultivate totally different relationships and a totally different experience. So, our saboteur is about safety. That's what it's rooted in, not laziness. It often means that our next identity shift is near. And so that's what I was going through with this last couple of weeks, is I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And then all of a sudden this wound comes up about, nobody wants to hear what you have to say. And I have, this saboteur coming up and I'm not doing the things I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm playing, township, or I'm reading a book, or I'm like going out for a walk because I just don't want to do the stuff I said I was going to do. Now I give myself a lot of grace and I'm like, okay, now let's dive in. And I start calling all of my inner circle to say where is this coming from, and help me release it. And so, whether that's using NLP, whether it's using Akashic Records, whether it's using tapping, which I use a lot, body code, which I use a lot, using these different tools and techniques to support me. And then I dive deeper into my spiritual practice. So more meditation, more spiritual reading, more of those things to help support me and give me the foundation that I need. And so when we're coming into a shift, often that's when the saboteur comes in, because it's saying, hey, you have a deeply embedded wound that's going to interfere with what it is that you want to move into next. So who you are becoming is, there's a dichotomy, and we need to deal with this issue so that you can expand. It's like you need to pull the anchor up so the boat can move. And that's what starts to show up, and the saboteur is really trying to let us know what's sitting there. And so the solution is not to push, but to pause and have presence. And so often, just like I started to in the beginning, where it was like, have a drink, read my book, go do something else. There's a coping mechanisms. But then when I started to pause and I started to like, what's going on here, and get curious, then I started to be able to give presence to it. And in that curiosity, I was able to have the courage to really look at not only this situation, but my whole life, and go, oh, this is so fascinating how this is played out. And then as soon as I started to look at it from that point of view, I got the absolute gift of seeing how much the universe is with us while we're doing this work, because it was like a constant affirmation that I was on the right path when I listened to all the other signs that were coming through, which is a real gift. And so I've got some journal prompts just to reflect with, and you can either do it here or you can do it after. I'll put the prompts also in our in the comments, so then you can take a look at them afterwards. So what feels unsafe about my next level of truth? And so for me, with speaking, one of the things that was coming up is nobody wants to hear you speak. And so what was unsafe about it is that I was going to be there and nobody was going to, like, what's the point, right? Here I am up there and I believe that I have nothing worth saying. And I mean, it went really deep. I went into a dark, dark spiral for a couple of days, and it was like, whoa, I got to see a whole bunch of gremlins. And I was like, you guys are brutal. And these are things you should be seen and not heard. Repeated my entire childhood. Fairly typical for kids of this, early 70s. So you should be seen and not heard. That continued on to, my God, you're always heard and never seen. Can't you just shut up and try and look cute? Those were direct quotes. Love the try and look cute. And so this was a constant in my life when I sat and looked back at it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, well now I can see where this is coming from, so I can start to unleash it. And so what feels unsafe becomes really clear. What am I protecting protecting myself from by stalling? So protecting myself from being rejected, from feeling useless, worthless. Got a whole bunch of pieces in there. So we start diving deep, guys. And then what part of me needs to feel safe right now? And so, and often when we do our somatic work, we go inward, like, where am I feeling this? What part of me needs this? For me, it was my little girl. She needed to know that it was okay to be, heard. Always. It was always okay for her to have a big laugh. For years, I didn't laugh because I thought my laugh was obnoxious. I also didn't smile with my teeth because I was told I had an ugly smile. And there's all these things that get said to us that we really grip onto. And so, what is it? What part of me feels unsafe or needs to feel safe right now? And then the big thing is we often look outside of ourselves to get this. And my challenge to you is going to be, how can you give yourself that right now? How can you show up for yourself? So for me, it was taking the challenge 2 weeks ago to do this Mystical Mornings, where I go live on Instagram and it comes through Facebook and that, Mystical Mornings with Dawn. And every morning I do my morning rituals, and then I share what comes up. What is, this morning there was a bunch of stuff being triggered up. And it was a really fascinating thing to watch, like, oh, this is interesting. And then can we look at this from a different place? If we were to look at this from this journey of reactivating, acclimating, and harmonizing the divine feminine within us. And so if I'm doing that work and now I reread the work, where am I seeing something that's not quite congruent? Where is this kind of off? And then, is it okay for us to have desires, to have big dreams? Yes, it is. And so like really working through like some old ancient spiritual work, but rather than going against it, this is wrong, like really reading it and looking at it and being like, oh, I can see where this is being said from this place of disharmony. And so even within the translation, where we're seeing a lack of harmonization between our divine feminine and our divine masculine, and that those energies are in each of us. And so that's been how I've been working through just showing up every day, coming on here and doing more Facebook Lives. When somebody has a question, jumping on with the answer. That's another way that I've been trying to really deal with this thing, this old belief that nobody wants to hear what you have to say. So when somebody asks a question, answer it. That's a great way to start. And so it's been a beautiful gift to move through these things. Working this morning with Carol and moving deeper into it. So where can we support ourselves deeper and deeper on this journey of healing, of letting go of those old stories, because they don't matter anymore. They got us here to today, but we need to release the emotions, the dramas, the traumas connected with them, so that we can transmute those experiences into wisdom, which is what they were designed for. That's what we set ourselves up for, was to be able to have these experiences and then be able to transmute them, use them as a way to gain resiliency and move forward in our life. They were never designed to hold us back. And so just a way for us to look at this saboteur from a different way. Can we look at it when we sabotage ourselves, that there's a piece inside of ourselves that says, I'm not feeling safe. Take a look at it and let it come up. What is this? And then start to unravel and release it. And whether that you're doing that with yourself, with your counselors, with your coach, with some sort of support that allows you to move deeper and deeper into this, letting it kind of unravel for you and seeing the saboteur instead as a friend, an opportunity to expand, to grow, to become the person, to really not even become, but to remember the person that you were always meant to be. I hope this helps and supports what maybe is coming up for you right now in your life. It's been an interesting timing. I planned these topics like months in advance. And so I usually topic plan all the way through for a couple months. Like even right now I'm working in August. And so it was funny to see this come up this week while I was literally dealing with it. And so I was super stoked when I talked with Carol about coming on the podcast. And I'm like, whatever topic you want to talk about, let's have a couch conversation. And she was like, let's talk about saboteurs. And Carol's not on social media. So it was really awesome. I was like, yeah, let's do that. So next Friday we're going to be recording, and then I'm going to put it out as an extra. So an extra podcast that'll be coming out. I'm super, super stoked about it. I hope you are too. And we'll do some tapping. Most likely, knowing Carol, we'll do some rounds of tapping in there so that you can experience that. And when we do it, I'm going to have it on the podcast, but I'm also going to do some of the recorded pieces. I'll be video recording it as well. And so we'll put some of it on YouTube, and I'll share some of it here, of course, with you guys. So you'll be the first to know. So my question to you as we finish is, where are you circling right now? Where are you looping? Where are you finding yourself caught? Where would you like to move forward, but it feels like you just can't get the traction? So what's there for you? And remember, as we move through this, you're not broken. You're absolutely pure. You're perfection. You just need to get this obstacles, these little imbalances out of the way so that you can remember that. I hope you guys have a phenomenal day, and I am so grateful for every single one of you. I'll see you soon. Bye for now.